Going to need some thread. You're going to need a hand needle, a hand sew needle, and some thread snips. So you're going to want to thread your needle. And one thing that I like to do is I like to take my thread. So if you look at the thread here, it's got kind of a blunt end. So with a pair of sharp scissors, you want to take the thread and cut it at an angle. And you have a small hand needle. I'm going to take your thread, get in the camera here, and you're going to slide the thread right through the needle. And as you're pulling the thread off the spool, don't pull your thread off, then cut it and thread your needle. Keep the thread on the spool, put the thread through the needle, and then pull off the spool. Then when you get about an arm's length, go ahead and cut it off. And how I tie off my thread, I just take the two pieces, tie it in a knot, and there's my little knot, and then I clip off the ends just a little bit. There you go. You can see that. So now I have my needle in my hand, and I'm going over, and I'm starting on the right side because I am going to be stitching from right to left. So here is where we're going to start. So I'm going to go take my needle behind this seam. So here's a side seam right here. Here's a side seam of the skirt. Here's the side seam of the hem of the skirt. I want to go through the side seam in the skirt just to anchor my stitch. And pull it through, not too hard. And then I'm going to go around there one more time, nice and soft. And that's securing my stitch. So the blind hem is what you're going to do is you're going to take your fabric and you're going to fold it over your finger like this. And what I'm going to do is across here, or the serge stitches or the overlock stitches, I am going to go through that through those stitches or through that fabric, pull my thread, and then I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of the skirt. See that tiny bit right there? That's what I'm grabbing. I'm going to pull. And then I'm going to go back to where I started, where my thread ends right here. And I'm going to go through. See, I'm going through the hem, pull it out, and then grabbing a little bit of that fabric on the skirt and pull it through. The idea is you do not want your stitches to be seen on this side. And another thing you can do is if you don't have overstitch, if you don't have a stitch to go through, you can actually just go in through the hem. So if you pull the hem up by itself and kind of go in through the hem to the back and then come out the front and pull that, you could do that too. So what you want to do is you want to put the needle in. So if I did this, if I turn the other side and if I can see my needle, then I've grabbed too much. So you want to just take it back out, put your needle through. I'm going to check on the other side. It's right there. It's a really, really tiny stitch. You can't see the needle. So that's a good place for me. Oh, let me get it back in there. Want to check, see, too much. Just grab a little bit. Okay, that's good. And pull it through. Back to where we started. Going to go through the hem. Give it a nice soft tug. Through the skirt. Oh, I lost my needle. If you get tangles, please take them out. There we go. Check the other side. Looking good. And so I started here, and this is where I'm at right now. So if I take my stitches, just going to hold that. This seam is secure, and that's how far we went. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going all the way to the other side, and then we'll finish off. What you can do to make sure that you are doing your stitch right is to just keep playing the last couple minutes over again, because the stitch is the same. It does not change. So I've gone a little ways away from where I started, and because I don't want her to rip these stitches out if she were to get something caught on here again, I'm going to take my thread. So I've done anchored it to the skirt, and I'm going to go through the hem. I'm going to go through it again, and I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to, there's a loop here. Here's the loop. I'm going to take the needle through the loop, and that is locking my stitch. So I'm going to keep going. This is where I'm going to keep sewing. If you're finding that you're running out of thread, you would do that tie off to secure the knot. You would do the same tie off that we did earlier to secure the stitch. I'm going to go through the hem. We have a little loop here. We're going to go through the loop. We're going to pull that stitch. Oh, then we'll take the thread, go down inside the hem, just stick it down in there, and then come out. We're just going to go inside there, and this is just going to hide that tail. So when we look on the other side, it's nice and secure, and we have a little ways to go. So now we're going to take the thread off our needle. Again, taking the thread off the spool. And we're going to go ahead and cut it at an angle. Through the eye of the needle. Just a little arm's length off the spool. Okay. Did you hear my spool just drop on the floor? I'm going to tie off my end here. Clip it off. All right. Now we have our thread. Let's go back. Where did we leave off? That's where we left off. So I'm going to go under the hem. I'm going to do that twice. Just the hem, not the hem and the skirt. Just to secure that stitch. And here we go again. A little skirt and a lot of hem. Now that we're at the seam, what we want to do is we want to anchor this. We want to anchor our hem to the side seam. So we're going to go through the hem and the seam. I'm going to go across the hem to the other side of the seam. Yep, we're still in the hem. Pull through, let's not get that tangled up. Through the hem, through that side seam right there. I'm going to go ahead and take off her safety pins here. We don't need those anymore. Okay. Through a lot of hem and a little of the skirt. And I think an inch is enough space between. I would say go the length of your needle or the length of your thumb. See, if I will put my thumb in there, that's about the length of the stitch I'm doing. Right. A lot of hem and a little skirt, which means you're really trying to grab like maybe 2 strands of fabric of the weave and a little skirt. A lot of hem and a little skirt. A lot of hem and a little skirt. Almost at the end. A lot of hem and a little skirt. A lot of hem and a little. Let's check that. Yep, that's good. A little skirt. Yep. A lot of hem. And what I do is I just give it a nice little tug until that I can feel it in my hand. Listen. That's it, just a little tug. You don't want to pull it too tight because your skirt will pucker. and a little skirt. Almost at the end. A lot of hem. A little skirt. See that pucker? If that happens, just pull your fabric apart until it's straight or until it's flat. A lot of hem. And a little skirt. A lot of hem. And a little skirt. Got a little piece to go. I'm going to go a lot of hem. Now we're by a seam, so I'm going to go behind the seam. So behind, and I'm going through the seam and through the hem at the same time and coming up. And I'm going to go across to from one side of the seam to the other. See this line here, from here over there. So that's part of our lot of hem. And I'm going to go through the seam. So here's a seam, my finger's behind it. Right here in the corner, I'm going right around that to give it a nice big anchor. And this is the little pocket we have left. So I already did a lot of skirt, and here's a little hem. And then here is a lot of skirt. Here is a little hem. And we're at the end. So to secure this, I'm going to first take my little skirt. Now I'm going to go through the hem only once, through the hem second time, but I'm going to go through the loop. So here's that loop there, taking it through the loop and pulling it. And I'm going to do that one more time just to give it a nice anchor. Pull that through. Then I'm going to take the thread down inside the hem. Only the hem. You don't want it coming through the other side. See how the needle's in there? But it's not on the other side. So through just the hem. We're going to pull that through. And we're going to cut close to that hole. The end of that thread goes back into the hem and it's hidden. So the skirt is hemmed. It's going to go back to a happy customer. Hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe. Happy sewing. Love.